Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube, and I want to talk about sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis itself, just the term, to me is very much kind of a psyop, a psychological operation, in that it doesn't even come close to describing what's really taking place with these victims. Because typically, whenever we hear the term sleep paralysis, it's usually something to do with, it's a phenomenon, and usually they'll say it has something to do with a person either falling asleep or kind of awakening, and they temporarily experience an inability to move or speak or react. It's like a transitional state between wakefulness and sleep, characterized at the same time by a complete muscle atonia or muscle weakness. Many people have hypothesized on what it is. Of course, there's tons of scientific studies on this. In fact, one hypothesis is that it's all just a result from disrupted REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, which normally induces complete muscle atonia to prevent sleepers from acting out their dreams. Its sleep paralysis has been linked to disorders such as narcolepsy, migraines, anxiety disorders, and obstructive sleep apnea. But the one thing that the mainstream seems to leave out time and time again when it comes to the sleep paralysis are the absolutely terrifying, and I mean horrifying, experiences that many of these victims are suffering during these events. It's not about the sleep paralysis. It's about the kind of things that these victims are suffering during these events. Mainstream media, mainstream science calls all of this just a disorder. But when you start looking at the experiences that these people are having, even though many of the experiences are very, very different, all of them seem to have one thing in common: terrifying, horrifying visions, oftentimes described as demonic. And sleep paralysis isn't something that just happens to a handful of people. They say there's up to 3 million cases a year. So chances are that if you're not somebody who's actually experienced this, and I sure hope you haven't, just because of how scary this stuff is, chances are you know somebody, or know somebody that knows somebody, that has actually experienced this terrifying phenomenon. So there's a brand new movie out. It just came out a few days ago, and I just watched it recently, and this is the whole reason I wanted to make this video. The movie's called The Nightmare, and as it says there at the top of the movie poster, one of the scariest documentaries ever. And I have to say, I've seen a lot of movies. Many of you know I'm an ex-film student, and I worked in LA for a long time, and in Hollywood and different areas, but this is by far the scariest documentary I've ever seen in my life. In fact, it was so scary, and again, I don't get scared very easy, but it was so scary that as I was turning off the lights the other night to the house and heading to the room, I was kind of jogging a little bit just so the darkness didn't catch up to me. And I haven't been that way in a very, very long time, so this movie had an impact on me. I really wanted to show you a few clips here and there from the film, but of course as I uploaded a couple of these things, I got hit with copyright, and that's just the way it's going to be. So I actually have one small clip I'm going to show you in just a little bit, and it's really kind of the whole reason for me making this video. It's something from the movie I really wanted you to see. But before I get there, I have to say this whole sleep paralysis thing, man, absolutely fascinating stuff. Also, again, very scary, very terrifying. And if you're dealing with these kind of things right now, my heart goes out to you. And hopefully after this video, you'll find a way that maybe you can deal with these things. From what I knew about sleep paralysis and all the things I'd heard, I always knew that this was something spiritual. Now, I have a good friend, and she's experienced these things for years. And I remember her even telling me some of these stories in the past. And what was really weird is, there's only so much you can do for somebody when you haven't experienced this. You can care for them, you can pray for them, but that's about it. And you can listen. But then I saw this movie, The Nightmare, and what really tripped me out is it's basically all these different people's accounts of what they're experiencing. And many of these people's stories lined up perfectly with what my friend had been telling me for a long time, the same kinds of things. And what I learned from that, and what I learned from this film is people are having different experiences, but they're experiencing the same kind of entities. And I'm going to go ahead and go through a little bit of a list of the kind of things that are showing up in people's rooms at night when they think they're safe, when they're laying in their beds. And then suddenly they wake up, they're frozen in place, they can't move, they can't scream, they can't do anything, and they basically have to watch these things in their room and watch these things take place. Like I said, this stuff is scary, scary stuff. People who experience sleep paralysis hear voices and see strangers in their rooms. That's a very basic explanation of what's going on here. I want to take a look at some of these strangers they see in their room. As I said, when you start listening to people's accounts, not just from this film, but just doing your own research, you'll start to find that all these different people are encountering the same kind of handful of these entities. So you've heard of the shadow people, right? We've heard of the shadow people. I've done a few videos on shadow people. I've got footage that I've put out there before of these shadow people, but this is kind of a different kind of a shadow person. These are shadow people that, once again, are in your bedroom with you. They're described as fully formed beings, like it looks like human-type bodies, but made out of pure darkness, walking around in your room while you're frozen stiff on the bed and watching it. Oftentimes people say this is accompanied with a very negative vibration or a very evil energy. Another character that a lot of these people who experience this phenomenon say that they see in their rooms, oftentimes accompanied by a couple of different shadow people, is the Hat Man. The Hat Man has been described by many people that experience this sleep paralysis as well. And of course there's also the gray aliens. Okay, now once again, when you start listening to these people's accounts, you'll see that time and time again a lot of people are experiencing the gray aliens. Now, you know, we've heard about this, and there's plenty of movies out there about this, about people's real life experiences, but it's the whole alien abduction phenomenon, right? Well, that also ties in to the sleep paralysis, to these events. Now, of course, there's also the incubus and the succubus. There's the sex demon. Many people, both male and female, say they've actually had what feels like sexual experiences with these entities. Then there's also just the straight up in-your-face demon, right? Or demonic-looking entity with the horns and the fangs and all that stuff, right? Just exactly what we expect to see when we see a demon. These things pop up time and time again in these accounts. Another very common experience is when people actually have a little black cat on their chest at night. Or even right here, sleep paralysis and a demon rabbit cat thing. I've definitely seen a lot of these stories again with the cat showing up, but without giving away too much. And again, I would highly suggest you watch this movie. It is scary, but it's based on real events. It's based on things that are happening to real people. But easily one of the scariest moments in that movie has to do with one of these black cat sightings sitting on somebody's chest. Then the real question becomes, you know, is it an actual kind of entity in the shape of a cat, or is it another entity somewhere in the room making you see that cat? I'll leave you with that. But the point of the matter is that these black cats show up time and time again on people's chests. They're also very symbolic of little demons on people's chest. It's the black cat or the demon on the person's chest. Right? It's the black cat or the demon on someone's chest. Then another very common sighting is what they call the old hag, the scary old lady in the room. And on that note, I want to show you something. I want to show you how all these different images I show you, all these different experiences these people have, these things are played out in film and movies, and the old hag is a good example. I'll show you a few examples of the old hag in other media that you've seen. You may remember this from the movie The Shining, and also something else before I start getting into this. Just remember that a lot of people describe this as, like I said, it's almost like they're in another dimension. It's like they slipped through just on the other side of another dimension, you know, that they're seeing what's really taking place around us. That's the same thing, the same experience a lot of people say they have when they take the drug DMT specifically, which I've always believed from the things I've read about it and the experiences people have had, that it truly does show you just on the other side of this dimension. It splits dimensions. It's like you really do start seeing other things out there. You know, I don't know if we're supposed to see that stuff or not, but many people have taken that trip. And then we get back to these, night terrors or whatever, and it's these people aren't on drugs. They thought they were laying down to go to sleep, and next thing you know, they're instantly kind of transported into this bit of a dimensional shift, a lot of them describe it as, to where they see these things playing out in front of them. They can even interact with these things at times. Imagine experiencing something like this and being frozen in your bed, unable to move or scream. So that being said, I want to get back to this and show you that oftentimes you'll see a lot of these things played out in our culture. And as I said, there's recorded up to 3 million cases of this worldwide every year. So these things have been with us for a very long time. And I am one of the people who definitely believe all of this is demonic. As I've said before, you'll see it in movies when people ask the devil what his name is. He always says he goes by many names. It's because it does. It's the devil and his fallen angels, and they're all here, and I do believe they all go by different names. They're shapeshifters. They can come in different forms. And I believe these people experiencing these night terrors, unfortunately, are on the front lines of that experience. But anyway, back to The Shining. You may remember this right here. Jack Nicholson had met this attractive lady here in the hotel, and then next thing you know, she turns into the old hag, right? And this was kind of another one of those waking dreams, it seemed like, right? Like he was walking through and then he experienced this in the real. Like he wasn't asleep or anything, he was very much awake, and then he had the old hag come out and kind of chase him down. And then you may have seen some of these Insidious movies, and these are from a man named James Wan. And James Wan has done, I think he did the first Saw, and he's done a bunch of other kind of horror films. He's definitely a big name in that community. But in a few of his movies, he always brings back the old hag. You'll see this scary old lady. And again, she's been in, like I said, a few of his movies that aren't even associated with one another. But he'll bring in the old hag. And this is another scene from Insidious you've probably seen, but once again, he was dealing with that scary kind of demon guy. And this whole movie as well had to do with kind of that waking dream, parallel dimensions, having to deal with these other demonic dimensions that are just outside of ours. And once again, the idea of this sleep paralysis, or this kind of bending into these other demonic dimensions, plays out in another fairly new movie called It Follows. And many of you know I have a background in horror and things like this from many years ago, so I'll still watch some scary movies from time to time to see what's out there. I gotta tell you right now that It Follows is by far one of the best horror films I have seen in years. It's not about blood and guts and people being chained down in basements and tortured, so much of that kind of stuff. This movie is really smart and really, really scary, but just in kind of a fun, interesting way. But at the same time, it's exposing another one of these realities about what these people are experiencing, this kind of almost waking dream. But I bring up It Follows because once again in this film, we find the old hag once again. The general idea of this film, it's very interesting. But it's that people are passing on these spirits through sex with each other. So if you've got this thing on you from somebody else, it follows you. And it comes in different shapes and forms. It can look like a man, a woman, a child, but it never stops following you. And it wants to get you. It wants to touch you and kill you in all these different ways. Very scary stuff. So I thought it was interesting that one of the manifestations of essentially what is this demonic spirit, right, that is passed through sex, which takes us back to the incubus and the succubus even, and they even mention that in the movie. But I thought it was interesting because once again we have a manifestation of the old hag. And this kind of goes back to the whole idea of the kind of cat on the chest idea, right? But this right here is from a Stephen King movie, an old one called Cat's Eye. And there's this little troll that's wearing a jester's hat, and its whole mission is to creep up on this little child and steal his soul while he sleeps. And the jester hat, again, once again, that takes us back to the clown. And the clown is just another representation of the devil itself, or the devil and his fallen angels. Again, they have many faces. They come in many forms. Where else have we seen that clown, right? And again, once again, the clown is just another representation of the devil. And this is from another Stephen King movie, and this is called It. And the main bad guy in the movie It was Pennywise the Clown, which again was just another representation of the devil, demonic spirits. In the movie, of course, they say he's a giant spider from space, but I think we get what they're really trying to say here. And then we find time and time again a lot of these cases with these little so-called alien greys. Now, I've done a lot of videos on these. A lot of you have done videos on these. I certainly don't believe they're space aliens from another galaxy or whatever. We've been psyoped, we've been conditioned for a really long time through things like Ancient Aliens and even David Icke and people like that, these are all space aliens. But as I said, I've done videos on these, other people have done videos on these. I always associate these back to the fallen angels, the devil and his fallen angels. It's all part of that great big deception. If you're not familiar with that subject, I have a whole playlist on my channel called Alien Demon Deception, so please check that out. And as I said, if you really pay attention, you'll see that time and time again, we're told these same stories. We're shown the same idea, that these are evil, demonic spirits that come to us in our sleep or in a semi-sleep state. A Nightmare on Elm Street was all about that. And another really good example of this playing out in our films is from a movie called Donnie Darko, one of my personal favorite films because there's so much going on here that's symbolic. It's a very, very deep movie, but once again, this is Frank the Bunny, and this is the entity that haunts our main character in kind of his waking reality, waking dream. And that kind of takes us back to the Hat Man and the Shadow People. The Hat Man, we've seen that's very iconic. We've seen that played out in many different ways. Back to the Men in Black, and this goes beyond, once again, those movies. The movies came after. There really was a Men in Black. And to this day, there's people that say they have these Men in Black sightings. And these Men in Black in particular, especially the ones people are seeing in their rooms at night, have nothing to do with government agencies or anything. Typically, these things are a little off. They're not exactly human. But I want to go beyond those things and talk about the Shadow People. Once again, it's really interesting to see how this stuff kind of bleeds into our reality. Now, I believe that all of these things are demonic spirits. All of these are the fallen angel spirits. The devil and his fallen angel spirits. All of them. And of course, they want contact with humans. They've been trying to do this from the very beginning. And many of us understand that story. You probably remember this story right here, right? And that's the Slender Man. And we all know that the Slender Man was something created from, I think it was Creepypasta. It's one of those websites. But it was a character that was created online, and it really just kind of took off. People got really fascinated with it. Well, next thing you know, we got this story about these 12-year-old girls that attempted to kill another little girl. They stabbed her 19 times, and they believed they were doing it for the Slender Man. So here we have these two little girls who are so convinced that this thing exists, they're willing to kill another human being so that they can actually meet it. That is demonic. That is demonically inspired. I know people want to debate and argue and say, yeah, but it was just a created character. These kids are nuts. Nah. No. They invited this thing in. This Slender Man is nothing more than another shadow person or another gray alien or another incubus or a succubus. It's just another form of one of those entities. And these young ladies believed in it and gave it so much power they were willing to kill for it. And that brings me to the Charlie challenge. You've probably heard about this. This is another one of those big internet challenges that mainly a lot of children are getting involved with. And it's trying to call up this demon, right? They perform this little ritual and they're trying to call up this demon. And again, the mainstream, most people say, oh, it's just, it's dumb. Kids are just having some fun. You can see this right here. This is from the Young Turks. I don't know if you're subbed to the Young Turks or if you watch these people. Please don't. It's such garbage. These people they're just another part of that whole, they're part of the left side of that false left-right paradigm. Everything you get is going to be filtered through a so-called, quote, liberal lens. Okay, you're not going to get a lot of truth from the Young Turks. But even right here, they're mocking the whole Charlie story. Oh, okay, whatever, right? Superstition, huh? What's that kind of blind thinking that's allowing these kind of entities into people's lives? Remember, all of these things, it's the fallen angel spirits, it's the devil and the fallen angels, you can call them the demonic interdimensionals, whatever names you want to put on these things. But this is what this is. These things want contact with you. They want contact with us human beings. They want in. They want us to let them in. So now you've literally got this little game. It's almost like a Ouija board, and we know those aren't good for us either, right? So now you have this game where you literally have children inviting these things in. And if you think, oh, no, no, kids are smarter than that. They don't fall for stuff like this. Oh, really? Really? Do you remember this one? It's that Kardashian challenge where kids wanted to have big full lips like one of the Kardashian kids. So they put their lips inside these bottles, and look what happened. A lot of these kids had to go to the hospital. So once again, it's no knock on the kids, but you can't tell me that kids are too smart. They're not going to get involved in this Charlie and, you know, things like that. No, the kids are smart. You know, they don't follow trends like that. I'm telling you, it's very, very dangerous. Once again, back to the Charlie, that is a very, very dangerous trend. These things want in. They want contact. So in conclusion here, as I said, I wanted to show you some clips from the movie, but I can't. And also, I would just highly recommend you watch this anyway. You can find it online. I would say, you know, if you're, and this is definitely one of those, I would say, you know, if you can, try to pay for it. You know, this is one where it'd be good to give the artist back some money. I think it's well deserved. Because this movie is going to help out a lot of people, I believe, in a way that many people aren't expecting. The clips I was wanting to pull from here are the clips from people that were atheists or didn't even believe in God in the first place, and then they started having these experiences, and it changed their lives.
I just said, I remember this guy, his name is Jesus, and I'm going to use his name right now. And I'm going to say, just in Jesus' name, you know, you get out, or said something to that effect. I suddenly sensed that the demons, or the thing that was happening in me, that evil presence, just left, gone. It was like a feeling of victory. Some lady a long time ago told me I should marry a Christian man, and I just laughed in her face. Anyways, I learned very late in my life that the name of Jesus has power.
And that's what I wanted to show you guys, and that seems to come up time and time again, and I just think that it really shows clearly that that's what these things are. Regardless of what form they show up, these are just more demonic interdimensionals, or the fallen angels, or the devil and his crew, whatever you want to call it, but that's what this stuff is, and it's wanting to come in. It wants into you. That's how you battle these things. The name of Jesus has power. Now, another reason I really wanted to show you that is because one thing I see time and time again on my videos in particular, and really all over the place, is this infighting, this bickering over the name of Jesus or Yeshua. And I've been lectured to on so many of my videos. You know, it's like, oh, dear, sweet, dumb KJ. You see, the J wasn't even invented until, and it's like, dude, I get it, all right? I understand all this. But do you really think that God and Jesus really care about that? All right? Like if you're calling Jesus Jesus or Yeshua, I think it's annoying. I think it's obnoxious. It's dividing people. And this is another reason it's hard for me to even want to call myself a Christian. When I see these people with avatars with Jesus's face or glowing crosses, and their name is like Jesus Loves 777, prayer, salvation, repent, all this stuff. And these are some of the most hateful, bigoted, condescending, nasty people I've ever seen on YouTube. But hey, they call themselves Christians. But I go look at their work, I try to find their videos, I'm not seeing much. What I do see them doing is staying very active on attacking anybody else out there that's approaching this kind of subject matter or anything else related. So again, guys, it doesn't matter, all right? If you're one of these people who are experiencing these things, again, my heart goes out to you, okay? I know it's scary. I know it can be terrifying, but I'm hoping this video helps. Call on Jesus. Call on the name. No, it doesn't matter your denomination and all that. It doesn't matter all that stuff, okay? I mean, come to God and Jesus as a child. And know that Jesus will protect you from all of these things. Anyway, guys, that's the video. I hope it helps somebody out there. You know, and I'd love to hear your stories underneath the video. If you've experienced these things or whatever, please share your stories with us. I think that other people can probably benefit from that as well. If there really are up to 3 million cases a year, as I said, many of you out there maybe haven't experienced it, maybe you have, but at least you probably know somebody who has. So let's share some stories and bring some light into this really dark and interesting subject. So take it easy, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.